Welcome to Sick Biz Business Course Module number 3. And I have to make a quick correction here. I was so excited about talking to you about marketing, and that's not occurring until a later module, that I jumped the gun. So actually, Sick Biz Course Module number 3 concerns scheduling. And we dive a little bit into mindset and how we want to start thinking of ourselves as we're operating these businesses. So I'm excited about this aspect too, because scheduling is a critical part of running a successful business as somebody who has a chronic illness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chronic illnesses, whatever you have, and or a disability. So we need the ability to change up our schedules according to how we're feeling and what we need. And if we're tired, you might be exhausted. There's many reasons that people flare. For example, if they have an autoimmune condition, ask me how I know this, right? You might be dealing with hormone issues. You might be too hot. You might be too cold. You might have eaten the wrong thing. You might not have gotten enough sleep. You might be stressed out. You might even not be able to trace why you're not feeling good one day, and maybe just exhaustion comes and hits you. You might have a garden variety cold, and guess what? That winds up being that you've got 6 or 7 weeks that you're recovering, and in that time you're exhausted. Or maybe your condition makes your joints ache, and that makes it really hard to do any work, doesn't it? So a lot of times our focus, we have to work so hard on our focus and on being so positive and on showing up again and again. And so many people don't have this issue. So many of the normies, as I call them. I wrote about normies in my book, Sick Success, and it just kind of made me feel a little better about things, to poke a little bit of fun. But in any regard, we're going to talk about scheduling today, and then we're going to get a little bit into mindset. So let's go ahead and dive in. The standard doesn't allow you to succeed. And what I mean by that is we are thrust in the middle of the grind mentality or the hustle mentality. And in that mentality, and you may have noticed this if you're talking about how you don't feel good, or it's hard for you to show up, or it's hard for you to find motivation, you might have people say, well, dig deeper, put a smile on your face. That's not how you need to show up. You need to do this and this, or shouldn't you try this? The people who should me to death, I'm so over it. I'm sure you feel the same way. Stop telling me what I should do. I'm doing the very best every day to answer to myself and my mental health and my body, and I know you're doing the very same thing. But I think that hustle mentality is literally killing us. So here's what I want us to linger on. You have the ability to write your life every single day, every single chapter, every single page in the way that you need. You may need to detach from that hustle mentality because it guilts you to a degree. Oh, you didn't do this. Oh, you didn't show up and do that other thing. Oh, you didn't wake up at 5 a.m. and so you missed this chance or whatever. To a degree, we need to show up where the people are who are willing and able to pay us, yes. But first, our health is paramount. Our health comes first. So to those people, I just say, you know what? Agree to disagree. And also, you don't understand because you're not me and you don't live in my body. So this is why I'm bringing to the forefront an anti-hustle movement that I'm so glad you're here to learn about it and be a part of it. Okay? There's several ways to live with your symptoms. There's several ways to get to work in spite of those systems and in spite of those conditions, to get a handle around the work that can be done, even to be flush with work when you're sick. There are a multitude of ways to reach that same finish line. And so, is it sexy to talk about things that, maybe there's not a Lamborghini parked in your driveway or whatever, you don't live in $1 million neighborhood. But the point is that you can make a living, you can pay your bills, you can catch up on your doctor bills, and you can do other things that provide extreme value for yourself and your clients. I work according to my circadian rhythm. So what that means is that when I sleep and when I wake, and I've always been like this as a kid, I'd be the kid that was out, all night long. When I was a teenager, we'd go to the coffee shop and we'd sit there and I'd be out all night long and it wouldn't affect me. And I was alive at that time of night. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was hypervigilance so the boogeyman wouldn't get me or whatever the case is, but I've always been built like that. I come alive at night. I get creative at night. When I try to go to sleep, all of these ideas start percolating in my mind. And so sometimes I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just going to get to work. I think that's what I need to do. And I don't have to answer to anybody, and neither do you. You don't have to explain to somebody and say, 3 a.m. is my jam, and here's why, and this is what I need to do. You just need to be able to do it to fulfill what's right for you. So my circadian rhythm is not early in the morning. I'm not that person that you'll see at 5 a.m. at the gym. In fact, my husband, before we were married, he was an Army sergeant at the time, and he would take me to the gym. And it was a good day for me if I was not retching in the parking lot because it was just too much for my body. It was too much, the infusion of fuel. It was too much. I had just woken up. And so I needed to learn what to do to serve me so that I would feel good, so that I can be productive. And I put this out there for my business now. And this is what I'm advocating for you is I don't care if your jam is 5 a.m. I don't care if it's 3 a.m., 1 a.m., whatever it is. I don't care if you need a nap after you reward yourself with a half-hour show, whatever the case is. Find a rhythm that works for you. You don't have to defend it. It's an option. It's an option for you to do many, many, many things. I've been using the circadian schedule with some time cushions built in for many years now, and it works for me. It allows me to ensure I'm making deadlines. Sometimes I miss deadlines. We're all human. I do not do it a lot, but sometimes I do if I'm sick. But this allows me to plan for the best of my ability that I am going to make deadlines. I am going to ensure that what I tell people I'm going to do, I follow through and do. So the first kind of schedule that we're going to talk about today is what I like to refer to as the everything schedule. So the everything schedule is very rigid. And you may hear people who are the hustlers and the grinders, and they'll talk about the everything schedule. Your day has to begin precisely at the same time every day, and it should be very early in the morning. It's before any note, hint, peak, crack of dawn has broken through. That's when you're getting up, okay? And you're doing this at the same time every single day, which means you're going to bed at the same time every single day. And you're striving for that consistency every single day. This is fine. This is a fine concept for a number of different people. Absolutely. And I salute them. If you can do that, that's absolutely fine. The everything schedule ensures that time with your spouse, time at work, time at the doctor's, time with the kids, whatever is on your schedule is treated as equally important as anything else on the schedule. And it is immovable. Except in cases of emergencies. Otherwise, you are to follow through with that schedule all the time, every single day, whatever is written down for you. The everything schedule also serves as a list for you so that you don't have to remember what's written down for you to do. You're just going to refer to your schedule, and that's all you need to do. Everything is there, right there for you. It's on the schedule. 1 o'clock, I got so-and-so. 2:30, I got this guy. 3:30, I got this gal, whatever. Boom, boom, boom. It's all right there. You're fitting your work in between that. So you're obviously going to have to schedule time to work, and some people do that. I do schedule time to do editing jobs, for example, so that nobody can go in, take my calendar link, and then overschedule me. So I have to be responsible for that and say, okay, well, I've got 3 editing jobs to finish this week, for example. So I'm going to earmark out those time slots and make sure that I complete them. However, because of its rigidity, I don't think the everything schedule is the end all be all, especially for people in our community. It's very, very hard to have a consistent 2 days in a row. That's very challenging. Again, because of all the variables that come into play when we talk about why we flare, when our disease kind of is exacerbated. So we need to account for that in the anti-hustle. The number 2 schedule is what I talked about, and that's the one that I follow, is the Circadian Rhythm schedule. And just to give you a peek into my life, so my husband goes to work, he leaves the house at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then he comes back at about 5 o'clock at night. So he's gone for about 12 hours. I typically don't get up until at least 9 a.m. If I get up at 9 a.m., I'm not having a meeting for the most part until at least 10 a.m. So I've got some time in my schedule that I absolutely am blocking off that nobody is allowed to take from me. That's the time that I need to acclimate to the morning. Sometimes when I wake up, I don't feel good. I don't know what kind of day I'm going to have. All of my systems are affected by the diseases that I have. And so everything can kind of crop up here and there. And I might need some time to get my arms around some symptom management. So I wake up in the morning, I'm making sure that I have at least an hour. I've got an hour to drink my coffee. I've got an hour to prepare myself for the day. And I'm not going to stress myself out in that hour. I'm going to make sure that I have accommodated and planned for my day the day before. So if I have a 10 a.m. meeting and I know that I need to have read another draft of this book or whatever the case may be, I've already allotted for time for that. So in the Circadian Rhythm schedule, my husband gets home, we have a non-negotiable dinner time. Every single night when he gets home, we eat dinner together. I've got clients that say to me, hey, you know what? I have some time free during dinner. Can you talk on the phone? No, I can't ever talk on the phone during dinner. That is an immovable date, that it is consistent and constant. It is part of the glue of our marriage that we have dinner together. You can have those non-negotiable pieces of your life, and I actually advise that you do that. I think you need to defend, and I think you need to block for those pieces in your life that give you the areas that are rewarding you. If I don't have that time with him, I don't know how his day goes. Then I'm disconnected. What is he going through? What's been going on at his work with his team? Are there things he needs to talk through? What do I need to talk through? You know, I'm very happy to see him walk in the door, and I'm never, ever going to give up that time. So make sure you identify your non-negotiables in the midst of your circadian rhythm schedule. Now, once we're done talking, we've had our dinner, we've shared a meal together, then we kind of go our separate ways for a little while, or maybe we'll watch a movie or something, or if we go our separate ways, we'll come back a little bit later. We go to bed together every single night. Sometimes I will work late in bed, and I'm pretty lucky because he's a pretty good sleeper. Well, he is now. So he didn't used to be, but he is now. So this works for me. And I can go back to work. If he is a little bit more restless, I can always get up and go downstairs. Or I can stay downstairs and he goes to bed and I come up later or whatever. My point is that I see how I feel. Do I need to go to bed earlier that night? All right, then I can move some things around because I built in those time cushions. I built in, and this sounds so sad, but it's mandatory. I built in the time not to feel well. So I know if I'm not feeling well, then I can say, well, you know what? You've got those time cushions. Do you really need to get that done tonight when you're super, super tired? And the best thing for you is sleep right now. My diseases respond very, very well to sleep. And in fact, when I am exhausted or I haven't had enough sleep, that's a lot of times why I'm not feeling well. So circadian rhythm schedule accounts for when and how you work best, the people that you need to spend time with, and you're also ensuring that you're getting your work done. So I'm scheduling in the actual jobs that aren't calls, And as soon as somebody makes an appointment, and I always get a notification, so I use Calendly, and as soon as somebody makes an appointment, then what typically happens is I get an email notification. And so I can go to my schedule and I can say, okay, look, that person made that appointment on this day at this time. That means that I need to then build in a cushion around that. So I have to pay a little bit more attention. But if I don't pay attention, all of a sudden I've got 5 calls in a row. I haven't peed in, 4 hours, whatever the case may be. Well, that's terrible if they're each an hour long. Obviously, I haven't peed in like 6 hours. But you get what I'm saying. I box myself into a corner. I don't drink enough water. I get dehydrated, etc. So the circadian rhythm schedule accounts for those things. Schedule idea number 3 is that you will continually change up your schedule according to your priorities, meaning that you're going to revisit your to-do list every single day. And I want to tell you, in working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and successful, very high producing entrepreneurs and business owners, some of whom are multimillionaires, some of whom are multi-billionaires, probably not multi-billionaires, but billionaires. And these people know what it takes to manage a very tight schedule. And so I have been privy to seeing how these people operate. I've seen the everything schedule, everything on the schedule. I have seen the circadian rhythm schedule, the schedule that I use. I have seen the juggling the priorities around, which is the schedule that we're talking about right now, where you wake up every day and you are refreshing that to-do list. So ensuring that what got pushed off yesterday now becomes a priority today. And that's completely fine. I don't have a preference for the schedule that you choose for yourself. I just want to make sure that it's sustainable for the long term, because one of the most frustrating things that I have found is I will hit upon a process or a strategy or even a schedule, and then something comes up and it's not a regular facet in my life. This is why I'm very particular, for example, like how I go to bed. I go to bed, I lay down, the TV is on, I'm watching typically, this sounds terrible, I'm watching ID, investigation, discovery, documentaries or whatever on crime, and I'm on my phone, my husband is sleeping, I have to wind down in this way. Not only do I have to wind down in this way, but I also need to have that expectation of this is how my evening is going to be. This is where I go to bed. This is what it feels like when I go to bed. And so it engenders me with a feeling of security. So working with hundreds of high producing entrepreneurs, business owners, and these are the schedules that I'm privy to and that I am seeing. Schedule number 4 accounts for the fact, and I think 3 and 4 can actually work in conjunction with schedules 1 and 2, the everything schedule and the circadian rhythm. Schedule number 4 accounts for the fact that smaller tasks are always going to be addressed first. And along that train of thought is the fact that even these infinitesimal tasks, for example, like email Gail that file for, the graphic project or whatever the case may be, right? Well, if it takes you longer to write down email Gail, you might as well just sit down and email her and not even have that task make it onto the list. So that's what this schedule is all about. Get those smaller tasks out of the way so you can allot time and schedule time for those larger tasks. Schedule number 5 is what I'd like to call the sandwich schedule. And my husband uses this schedule and I think he's very funny. So he chops up his day into what is meaningful to him. He needs work time, he needs decompression time, he needs family time, and he needs prep time, which will get him ready for the next day. And that is a huge contingent factor of schedule number 5, the sandwich schedule. You're not only chopping up your day into the areas that mean the most to you and that you need to have time with to feel good about yourself and productive about yourself, and is like you're taking care of your relationships and nurturing every area of your life that needs it, you also need to be planning ahead. I believe this came about because, again, he is a former Army sergeant. And so, that was like drilled into his head that you better show up here and you better be on time and you better be prepared. And he continues to live that way. It's an option for you. You absolutely can work the sandwich schedule. It works for him. I see him do it all the time. That's how he fits, getting laundry done before he's got to return to work, for example. So I like to introduce these various options to you, and organizational options that we'll talk about in later modules as well, because they give you the tools. When you have the tools that you can see, you're not different because you have a diagnosis. And this is so critical for you to believe. You are not a different person. You are not a person with a anything. And that's why I'm really not a fan of the word disabled, because it immediately deducts or subtracts from able and implies less abled. And that is simply not the case. It's not the case if you have illnesses, a multitude of illnesses. It's not the case if you're on oxygen. It's not the case if you use a wheelchair. It's not the case if you use a cane or any other assistive device. It's not the case if you're blind or you can't hear. It's not the case if you have any sort of disability. It is not the case. These are conditions that you must live with and that you must manage to the best of your ability, but it absolutely does not subtract from the amazing human being that you are. It does not subtract from your potential in any way, shape, or form. And I want you to know that you're in charge of that. You're in charge for what you allow. You're in charge for the thoughts that you allow in your head. Understanding as I say this, I know depression is a big fat liar, okay? And so is anxiety. So I'm not including these clinical diagnoses in what I'm talking about right now. I know depression will lie all day to you. It's going to tell you you're worthless, you might as well sit around, nobody cares. Anxiety is going to tell you you should apologize for even being alive all the time. Always apologize. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're not afflicted by these diagnoses, or you're not affected by these diagnoses, and you have a choice and you want to change the self-talk that you give yourself, then you are responsible for telling yourself what you're capable of. And you need the tools. That's why we talk about so many tools, because sometimes it's just a matter of, man, I just don't have the tools. If I had the tools, I could rock the hell out of this, because I am talented. I am passionate. I am determined to work. I am determined to know that I can bring tremendous value. It makes you feel good, and it makes other people feel good. And you know what else it does? It breaks the stigma. And we have a little bit of a responsibility, living as we do, to help to break that stigma. I know, I'm not crazy about it either, and you don't have to break it all the time, but the more that we do that and the more that we contribute, the better we make life for other people. So let's move into our next section that we're talking about here. Is when I get stuck in that headspace, I need some mantras to get me out of it. And trust me, as much mental work as I've done, as much emotional labor as I have put in to rewire my thoughts of who I believe I am, I'm still a human being, and I get stuck sometimes. So I need a mantra. I've got two that work for me, and they are pattern interrupts of this mental capacity. So mantra number one is, okay, Hillary, you know that's not true. What's the real truth? It stops me in my tracks. if I'm rejected, if somebody stops talking to me, if somebody's not nice to me, my knee-jerk reaction is to go into what I told myself over and over again. Well, you know why that is. Everybody leaves you. Well, you know why that is. You're not worth it. You're disposable. I stop myself. I hear that and I go, oh, that's not true. I am not disposable. I am important. So I'm going to tell myself what the truth is, and I know those other words are coming from a place of darkness. They're coming from a place where I was and where I lived for a long time. The other mantra that I use is, that's not helpful and that's not true. But you know what is true? Insert this really awesome thing about yourself. You're an incredible writer. You're a great friend. You are a caring, loving person. So tell yourself what's true about yourself and stop that negative self-talk. That's critically important. So I want you to take that away from this particular module, how you talk to yourself. Now we're going to talk about how you talk about yourself to other people. And if you're going to share your illness or your sickness, your condition, your disability, whatever it is, with other people. And obviously there's two ways that you can handle this. One, you're not going to share it. That doesn't mean it's not going to come out later. It also doesn't mean that omission is a lie. It just means that you have the privacy. You don't have to share what's personal, what's intensely intimate, your physical conditions. You don't have to share that. And nobody should ever be able to guilt you or make you feel like you do. You have zero obligation to share any of that. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, you know what? I heard you have this condition. Do you think you're going to have a problem getting my work done? First of all, thank you for bringing that up. That's a very intensely private part of my life, and I prefer not to discuss it. To answer your second part of your question, I never have a problem getting the work done. And that's why I have so many people coming to me through referrals and repeat business and things of that nature. So if you're concerned about that, you need not be concerned about it. I make your work my priority. And that's it. And you don't have to talk about anything further. You don't have to kid glove them either and, make them feel not as bad because they asked you something highly, highly inappropriate. Would you do that to somebody? I was in a wheelchair one day because I was having a tough day, and when I have a tough day, I can't walk very well. So I was in a wheelchair, and somebody just came up to me and said, "What's the matter with you?" Oh, really? Are we doing that? What's the matter with me? What business is it of anyone what I do, where I go, how I go there, what facilities or adaptations I use? Certainly not the person who asked me. I really didn't feel like sharing my medical history. And that's the case with you too. So don't feel obligated. Other people might say, yeah, you know what? You got to tell them and you got to be open and you got to talk about it. And no, you don't. Absolutely don't. Or you can live your life in the open. And that is certainly an option you can take. You don't need to feel bad about that option. You can share with people every waking minute of what it's like living like you do. See how that goes. That's up to you. And I support you in anything that you want to do. You don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to be joyful about what you're going through. If you choose to share, you're also accepting that you don't have control over the perception of other people, which is kind of unfortunate because it can bite you in the butt, but I'm never, ever going to tell you not to share with another person. That's not a good support from your coach. You get to have your feelings. You get to say things. You get to make decisions of your own volition. And as with anything you do or say, then you also get to own them. So you get to own both the good and bad consequences. Sometimes those bad consequences, they're not deserved. And we know this, but it doesn't mean that you don't get to choose what you want to do. Personally, I live out loud. That doesn't make me better. It doesn't mean that that decision is anything but different. That's all it is. It's just if it's something that you are not comfortable doing, it's just a different decision. That's it. We don't even have to agree to disagree. Just pick a path and, be authentic about it. I'm fine living out loud. And the reason I am is because I do have that crusading part in me that wants to break stigmas. I want to get out there. I want to stick my nose in it. I want to change the perception surrounding how people with chronic illness and disability work. And so it requires me to live out loud, and I'm fine with it. If there's anybody who's so short-sighted who would come to me and say, well, I'm not going to work with you, wonderful. I don't think we're right for each other either. So all the blessings to you, and then, okay? That's no skin off my nose. Shouldn't be any skin off your nose. I hate the word shouldn't or should, but try so that there's no skin off your nose if somebody attempts to hurt you. So the tools that I'm leaving you today as we wind up SickBiz Business Course Module number 3 are calendar tools. Big surprise! The first one, these are tools that I use. Well, I use 2 of these tools. So I use a Google Calendar that's directly connected to Gmail. So if you have a Gmail account, you can access your Google Calendar. It's fantastic. It integrates with everything. If you have an iPhone, it integrates with that. You can add in other people's Google Calendars as well. So if you've got team members and you need to help manage those calendars, or even just take a look and see, okay, I need to schedule this meeting, like when should we do this? I also use an application called Calendly, and the link and the correct spelling for that will be on the resources page. So at the end of this video, you'll be able to click on that resources page, as always, in any of the modules. And Calendly is fabulous because I'm able to design specific appointments. So let's say I want to design an appointment that's 60 minutes long, and it's for an outline package. So my outline sessions each run 1 hour long, and traditionally I need to have my clients schedule 3 outline sessions. So I can just give them the link for that particular appointment that I've designed. Also within Calendly, I can collect their information. So I can get their email, I can ask them questions and get answers to questions, I can get their phone number, their name obviously, and anything else that I want to throw in there. So it's very customizable, and it's very easy for them to just kind of hop in there, and they're syncing up my calendar with their calendar to find the appointment that makes the most sense for them. I've used Calendly for years, and it also saves a lot of time of going back and forth and saying, well, I'm available next Tuesday at 3 p.m. at Central. What time are you available? Well, I'm not available till Thursday. Well, then I'm not available then. Well, what about Friday? Friday, 11 a.m.? Oh, shoot, I have a doctor's appointment. And it goes on and on. So what you can do is just give them your Calendly link and say, would you please select the 60-minute option, or you can even go in deeper and give them the link to that 60-minute option. I love Calendly. It's completely free and very customizable. You can use it. It integrates with Gmail as well. Another option that you can use, and I don't use this, but I know people who do, is called Schedule Once. That again will be on our resources page. You can just click the link and sign up if that's something that you want to do. A lot of similar options as Calendly. I'm just not familiar with it. So that wraps it up for this module, for the SickBiz Business Course, module number 3. We talked about scheduling. We talked about mindset, how we see ourselves. We revisited some mantras that we can use when we start getting stuck in a negative self-talk cycle. And we also talked about some of the tools that are available to us in terms of calendar links and even an email, etc., through Gmail. I hope you found this useful, as always, trying to give you tools to help you and support you in whatever you need as you move forward. I will see you shortly on module number 4, and we're going to talk even more about mindset in that module. And that is, again, another one of my favorite topics. I'm excited to see you over there. Thank you so much, and see you soon.